Hello, my name is Celestial Serpent, and I feel inspired today to talk to you guys about consciousness, about the process of manifestation and creation, and law, and all the other extrapolated subjects which are very vast. So I'd like to start by clarifying that we are all conscious creators in ourself, that we have the ability to create anything that we can visualize or understand within ourselves. I mean, you see examples of this with big entrepreneurs like, Richard Branson or anyone who've come up with this idea, and they've had such clarity on how it would work and had their kind of the fire in themselves to make it happen. And you can kind of just look at the amazing things they've done, and I'm sure many people would have looked at them and been like, that's impossible. You can't do that. It's such big dreams. And he's just one small example, just the one that popped into my head, kind of a mainstream example of it. But it's still just the idea. So this is kind of all coming from a place of understanding, knowing that we are gods and goddesses in ourselves. And that's the lowercase g. So we're all creative principles. We were made in the image of Creator, which inevitability is creation itself. And by that law, by that natural law, we have the ability to create. I mean, we can actually create life when we are in perfect unison. Like we can do this biologically as well, through through conception, through the concept and creation of conception. So I mean, creation is an androgynous thing, so it's not masculine or feminine, it's both, it's everything, it's all, it's this, it's that, the other. So I mean, although biologically, as we understand life right now, it takes a man and a woman to create on that type of level, on a biological molecular level, also on a conscious level through thought, word and action, we can create anything. And that's more vast creations. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of manifestation, because I have a reasonable amount of experience in creating things. Because and I also want to mention that it's very relative to law. And I find that my study into sovereign law, true law, whatever you want to call it, into common law, maritime law, all law has made me a lot more powerful as a creator. Because when I sit down and I think of a concept, I'll work out all the legal attributes to it, and I'll write contracts that attribute people to playing specific roles and performing specific services. So to understand the mechanism of law is really to understand the creation process, or the intricacies and complex matrices within creation, how things interact, kind of the symbiotic nature of whatever your creation may be. So I mean, this kind of concept of law is a very daunting type of subject matter for most people, which is understanding, the way law has been kind of hijacked and used by the 1% as a control mechanism is very real in this world. But when you understand what law is, being contract, I mean, I prefer the word expansion, because contract is got a few negative connotations to it, but really it just means an agreement, So all law is based on common agreement, and that is the foundation of law. So when you see a lot of these really kind of scary type of concepts of, authorities, which are literally the authored creations of something, authority directly connects to the word author, which I've found through reading legal dictionaries, that author's one of the most empowering words in there. You find the word person, which literally means a corporation, and is our kind of agent in commerce within the legal world, not directly us, but a representation of us in a commercial world. So the word author is important, and that directly links back to creator, because we are authors of our own life and our own creation, and they're very much the same thing. So when you step into the legal world, you also need to take the same role, that you can create anything, that you have the right for anything, as long as you're not imposing on others' freedom or harming others in any way, causing them injury. So kind of what we're seeing today in the world, from my perspective and my understanding, is that a lot of these big legal entities are using their knowledge of law and astrology, I mean multifaceted knowledge, in a means to repress the people. And I don't want to focus on that at all in this conversation, because to me that's manifesting something negative, focusing on that. It's really good to acknowledge it. You can't ignore a problem, but to solve a problem is to focus on its solution, which is a complete different spectrum. There's a problem and solution. So solution-based consciousness is the most empowering thing to do as a creator. And when we kind of look at it on the legal side, it's all based on something known as tacit acquiescence, which basically means through silence you agree. And that's a lot of the time why we're binded into these contracts with legal entities that really we have no intention of contracting with, and being contracted within their internal infrastructure, which is basically what we're doing. We're contracting in with corporations. Like, I mean, I'm living in Australia right now, and Australia is a registered corporation. The concept of Australia as a country is something that's more complex and not very well understood by a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand that Australia is a registered corporation, and its whole mechanisms, it's actually registered in America, but I mean countries are completely irrelevant. What I'm really trying to get at is that law is the interaction of corporations and different corporate bodies or agents in commerce. So a lot of things that we think are laws that are relevant to us are actually specific corporation rules and regulation. It's only when you're contracting with them, when you're agreeing to play a role within their internal institution or an internal corporation, that you're actually opting in to following their rules. And a lot of things like driver's licenses and any application or registration processes are opting into these corporations. And the word registration actually comes from the Latin regis, which means king. And again, that's tying back to where law came from, back to Rome, which is the emperors who were in great power then used law and kind of created the legal system that we have now. So all roads go back to Rome. And that's a funny saying as well, because the roads are actually the way of kind of controlling state property, or I mean even property. The concept of properties comes back to those days and to those empires and to those very kind of tyrannical governments or corporate entities. So I mean, even to exist on a road in Australia, in a corporation of Australia, is to, you know, you register to do that, and you pay internal taxes which are only relevant to the corporation. So even by existing on a road, by having an address, you know, an identity that they can use as coordinates or identification, is where they're getting their empowerment. And because people don't understand these intricate systems, we're in the position we are today. So what's often happening is people say you owe them money or yada yada. Like say you get a ticket from a copper or whatever for speeding or doing something that they've deemed as wrong or illegal. Well, what happens is they create a bond that kind of backs their claim, which was that you owe them X amount of money. But the thing is, by even interacting with a policeman in the common way that we do is entering into contract, pulling over when a copper puts on his emergency lights, and then assuming the position of their authority is entering a contract, creating a foundation or trust, and then entering into these complex legal systems that can be broken down to simple things, and it's all about making things simple because it's empowering. So even by conversing with a police officer or a person of authorized authority, is putting you in a position where you're assuming a role. And law is all about the roles and the specific services or the jobs that people have been dictated within that system. So, I mean, all policemen and politicians are actually public servants, so they should be serving us. And when you understand the proper legal system, you can act in a way where they are serving you, because they are meant to be there to protect and serve us. And it's just this kind of, all this grey area that allows the tyrannical happenings to take place. So enough about law. That's just a basic thing. But if you want to understand that more, then there's a lot of resources out there on the internet, just showing people how law really works and how to take the power back in that sector of life. But my intentions here are more specifically around consciousness and manifestation. So law is really just a way of controlling an outcome, agreeing to certain terms and conditions in order to reach a goal. And it's exact same process in manifestation, So I just want to lay down an exercise I do in order to achieve something, and that would be to visualize the whole entity, how it works, how all the departments interact with one another, which is a lot of kind of law, which is actually LORE, like the law of spirit, the law of nature, because nature has these intricate kind of cycles, patterns, algorithms, relationships, and that's why it functions so beautifully, why it's so perfect, because it's using sacred geometry and the divine ordering and divination of consciousness to order its creation. It's creating in alignment with the most divine patterns and qualities, characteristics in creation, because they are creation themselves. So you want to be able to visualize how it all works, visualize the very nature of how something operates, and then you can set a procedure in order to get there. You can start looking at small scale and use mathematical formulas in order to achieve what you want. So, I mean, you're looking at a business plan or something, which is often how we're thinking these days. We're thinking measuring in money, which all law has to do. If it's not measured in money, then it's very difficult, because there's no proof of claim. There's no claim at all if there's no money involved, which is very interesting. And money itself, to study that, I mean, that's another very intricate thing. And the fact is, in today's society, it is printed with no leverage to it. It's got nothing that backs it. It used to be gold and silver backed, used to be this and this, and now it's all complex derivatives and a speculative market, which is a very lucrative area, but it's also not real. It's not based on resources and tangible things. So so when you're taking this process, you need to look at it like a mathematical formula. You need to look at it like geometry. I always relate things back to geometry, so it has that simple nature to it, and it can be converted back into divine consciousness. So I'd look at something on a small scale. Make something work on a small scale that also operates on a big scale. Once you figure out how something works, you can do it on a small scale. You might only have a couple of grand to start your project or something like that, and that way you can start on a really small scale, say with a venue and this, and this, and then as things get bigger, you can see this equation extrapolating and actually providing a foundation or a vessel for the expansion of your dreams. So it's really important to be able to visualize that. And when you're visualizing it, you need to feel it, really feel into it, attach your emotions, and enjoy your creation, knowing that you can achieve it. But you can only achieve it when you know it. So it's all good to kind of be trying to manifesting this and this and that, and the mind's very active. But if you're not very still in your mind, you're not very clear with yourself, then the universe can't provide clarity in your creation. You're thinking about this and this, I want this and this, and your emotional pattern isn't stable, then the universe or creation or God is just reflecting that back to you in a mirror, because everything is mirrors in consciousness, and you're getting a direct mirror of your experience and what you're putting into it. What you invest in is what you get out. So the most important thing is clarity in yourself. What do you want? What does it feel like? What does it look like? And once you can really tune into that, and you know this is what you want, because some of the hardest things is to actually narrow down what you want in life. Until you do that, there's a good chance you'll just be floating around, and there's nothing wrong with floating around and being spontaneous. I mean, my life has been one miracle after another, leading me to the next thing and the next thing. So, I mean, the vision is going to be progressing and expanding as you do as a person. But even to just be clear on your next step, what you want, and just the next step, it's all about that next step, because it's all about being present and enjoying the time, enjoying what's happening now. So, I mean, if you know the next step, and the next step feels good, and it feels all in alignment, then you're on the right direction. If things are feeling really difficult and you don't understand them, well, then you're simply not in alignment, and it's going to be very hard to manifest what you want. So again, one of the most important things is to enjoy your experience, because our emotions and our happiness, I mean, this is a direct kind of navigational tool, like a compass, in order to see whether or not we're in alignment with our higher self. So if you're not enjoying something, it's simply not in alignment with your higher nature and your higher goals, because you should be enjoying every moment, because that's all you have at the end of the day, is each step, is the process. So it's not about the end goal in this understanding of consciousness, it's about the process. And if you're not enjoying the process, then you're not heading towards the appropriate end goal. So our kind of emotions in terms of a spectrum of happiness and all that is a direct link to whether or not we're in alignment and we've got clarity in ourselves. So I hope this has been help to anyone watching it. I've found this kind of process of understanding human consciousness to be very liberating and empowering in my life. And I hope and I know that if you apply the basis of what I've been saying, then you too can experience the most beautiful and freeing experiences in your life, and you'll be able to manifest absolutely anything. If you can visualize it, you can have it. And that is the process of creation and manifestation. That is God coming down on the face of the waters and creating, expanding. And there was light, and God became flesh. The breath of God. This is the very breath of God. And breath, the word spirit is Latin for breath. So when you talk about the Holy Spirit in any kind of religious context, you're talking about the breath. And this inhale and exhale of creation is manifestation, and it is the mirror of consciousness. So know yourself, and your reflection that you manifest will be very clear. Know yourself and love yourself.